Okay guys, so let's get started. Hopefully everybody at home is well and you were able to get some of the ingredients organized for the polenta today. The one thing I wanted to mention again is that just because we're using some of the higher ingredients like truffle and truffle oil and truffle paste, if that's unavailable, it's fine to do it just with your favorite cheeses, or if you don't like truffle, you can eliminate it. So don't feel that the recipe is set in stone. You can alter it to your own liking in terms of what you guys like and what you enjoy, okay? Polenta, we'll go into a little bit about my first experience with polenta. Polenta is a peasant dish from northern Italy, and originally it was done, again, much like a cereal or a grain, and it wasn't even using cornmeal. It was a North American influence that brought corn into the picture. Originally it was made with farro and using millet and other grains, generally wheat grains that were available to the Italians. And it wasn't until the North American influence brought some of the corn and they started using corn as well. My first experience with polenta, and a lot of people dislike polenta for probably the same reason. It was a cylinder tube that you could buy that was as hard as a hockey puck. And it had absolutely no flavor. It tasted like nothing, and everybody goes, oh, you have to try it, it's polenta, it's delicious. And I absolutely couldn't stand it. Well, that just made me want to figure out a way to prepare it and enjoy it more. So I was playing around with a couple of recipes, and I found that my like was more towards a creamy style of polenta. So a creamy style of polenta usually uses a finer grain of cornmeal. And for the particular dish we're doing today, and I'll show you after when we get to that we're using a medium grain cornmeal. And that's usually for a seared variety that you would cook it into a cake form or a loaf form, and you would slice it and sear it golden on the outside. And it's more traditional in terms of the way we're going to prepare the fries today, okay? So in terms of a softer polenta variety, that seemed to be the variety that I like the most. Cream polenta, you think about North American mashed potatoes, and you think about doing it with cornmeal, and we'd add things like mascarpone cheese and Parmesan cheese and butter, and it just really made it more rich, and it was more decadent. It was definitely a better finish for me. So what I realized that there were a couple of recipes that I wanted to incorporate that sear, that golden crust on the outside. So I prepared a recipe that was kind of an in-between. So if you're looking for another recipe for polenta that you can prepare in advance, I can send you that recipe as well, okay? So again, talking a little bit more about polenta, when I was at the club, I had been asked about some polenta fries that were becoming really popular. So I took that traditional dish that I made with blue cheese and mascarpone, and I actually just developed it by eliminating a little bit of the moisture content. The one thing about frying polenta is if there's too much moisture in the dish, and you'll see that when we're actually preparing the polenta, that it's very stiff. If there's too much moisture, then it won't fry properly. It'll actually fall apart, okay? So you'll see that when we're working the polenta in the pot, it's going to be quite a workout, and probably a workout that I've needed for a long time. But the end result is spectacular. They're moist on the inside and golden brown on the outside. Methods of preparing them. We talked a little bit on the recipe about whether or not you're doing a deep fry method and what types of oil you can use that are a little bit healthier offset to a regular canola oil or a traditional fryer oil. Using a light olive oil is fine, as well using a sunflower oil. Avocado oil is becoming really popular as well for its health offsets, but for today we're just using a light olive oil, okay? With these polenta fries, great snack to be able to share with a group of friends. So we serve them at the bar, and we serve them with truffle aioli. And again, truffle is not everybody's thing. I absolutely adore truffle. Are all of you familiar with truffle? Hi, Emma, how are you? Are all of you familiar with truffle? Do you enjoy truffle? Truffle is actually a fungus, and it's found near the roots of trees. And if you see pictures of pigs digging their nose in the dirt. Generally, they're looking for something to eat. And in Italy, still to this day, they use pigs or dogs. Some dogs have been trained, but the pig seems to be the best way to find some of the truffles. Some of them are cultivated now, so they are being harvested. But true to its form back in the day is pigs would root through the dirt and find the truffles close to the base roots of the tree. Truffle is very pungent. Hi Tara, truffle fries, she loves them. So truffle is very pungent, and a lot goes a long way. A little bit goes a long way. So you don't need a whole lot of truffle. We're using 3 different variances today. So we're going to use truffle sauce in the aioli. We're also using truffle oil in the aioli, okay? And then I'm going to season with truffle salt, so lots of truffle. In terms of the truffle going into an aioli, is everybody familiar with aioli? I mean, you see it on every menu. Hey, Roger, what's the difference between white and black truffles? So white and black truffles, well, one is white and one is black. How's that? No, that's pretty good. The black truffle for me is a lot more pungent. Time of the year and when it's available is also relatively different. The white truffle for me, or a winter truffle, it has a true aroma of truffle, but for me it's not as pungent. So I prefer the flavor of a white truffle. And is everybody familiar with aioli? Simple terms. So the aioli that we're pairing it with today, we're pairing it with the truffle. Aioli just simply is a garlic, generally garlic mayo, garlic lemon and olive oil. It's a garlic sauce, okay? So when you hear the terms on some menus that say aioli, it's a garlic olive oil sauce essentially, okay? So that's just celebrating garlic and truffle and aioli. But you can prepare the aioli just with lemon and fresh herbs. You can do just strictly a garlic mayonnaise, is fine as well. But again, it comes down to what your likes and dislikes are. Me personally, like I said, I love truffle, so that's why we're doing that today. Some of the things that you're going to need for today: presentation vessel. I thought I'd change it up a little bit rather than doing what we always do and serving it on a plate. We're going to use our olive board here, and we can either just stretch the aiolis across the board, or we can prepare it in a sauce container. You're going to need some outstanding cheese. So this is Parmesan Reggiano, and this we're going to shave on the fries after they come out of the fryer. We're going to need some accenting salt that we're using for this as well. And then our other ingredients I'll go through as we start up, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get organized for the polenta. Is everybody hearing me okay and understand what we're talking about? Everybody's good? Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get organized on the polenta, okay? It is so simple to prepare. What I'm just going to do is I'm going to go and grab the pot on the stove and bring it over. I'll be back in 1 second. I'm just going to place this across my cutting board so I'm not putting the raw surface of the pot on the board. Okay, and I'm going to move a couple of things out of the way just so we can get started. So a lot of this I have already measured out in advance. So I'm just going to get it organized here for you. So we have our regular whole milk. There's 7 cups of medium polenta, medium grain, so you can see that it's got a little bit of grit. The fine polenta, like I said, it will be almost like a flour. It's going to be used more for the soft polenta presentation, okay? 2.5 cups of heavy cream. The butter and Parmesan cheese, and this is really good quality grated Parmesan cheese, okay? some kosher salt, cracked black pepper, and our measuring spoons, I'm going to get the chicken stock, okay? So in terms of starting off the polenta, all we're going to do is we're going to measure our whole milk.
Roger says, what's the difference between polenta and grits?
Oh, grits. Roger's being the guy today. So, Raj, actually, polenta is, a lot of people misconstrue polenta and grits. Usually grits are made from the hominy, and it's a ground white corn, and it's prepared in the same manner. So a lot of people think that polenta and the grits are essentially the same. Grits are really traditionally southern, so a lot of the southern states use it, but it's very much a porridge or cereal-like dish that you see served with a lot of breakfasts and other dishes in the southern states. And I know, Raj, you spent some time in the south, I believe, as well, right? I believe you did, from what I remember. Roger and I worked together back in the day. He's an amazing chef, and I'm not sure where Roger is now, but he's done amazing things in his career. Thanks, Raj, for the questions, bud. Good quality Parmesan. Let me talk about that for a second. The one thing that is so true about Italian cuisine is that the ingredients that they use are very much instrumental to their cuisine in terms of the preparation. Usually Italian cuisine is a few ingredients, but they're always the highest quality or the best ingredients. So when you go to the grocery store and you'll see that there are different varieties of Parmesan that are available, the cheapest one isn't the best. Generally, what I was told in the past is that when you're buying a really inexpensive, look on the label, and if it says cheese product, then generally you know you're not getting a good product. Parmesan, from what I understood, is that they're taking the rind itself. So when you're seeing the exterior of the Parmesan, and you're seeing that outside layer of the parm, a lot of that is ground up within the cheese itself. So you're not really getting the depth or the good quality parm. Parmesan Reggiano, like I'll give you an example. That is about $30 a kilo right now. Okay, 32. Actually, and that's for me to buy, guys. The cheese itself now, probably with everything going on coming out of Italy, it makes it also a little bit more expensive now because of obviously things coming across the border. And unfortunately, that'll probably continue to happen for a little bit. But I mean, you are what you eat in terms of the end product is going to be what you put into it. So when you're buying cheeses, yeah, you can buy the less expensive cheeses, but the end result aren't going to be what you would normally be comfortable eating at a restaurant. When you say, wow, that was really a fantastic risotto, generally it was because they used fantastic cannelloni rice and they used unbelievable cheeses to finish the product, right? Okay. So I'm just going to go over to the stove and bring over the stock. So I did not measure the stock. So again, we're going to put in the 7 cups of chicken stock. This will take a second. The seasoning with the polenta, I am going to season the liquid that I'm going to start up because once the ingredients are added, I think that's 5. Once the ingredients are added, it's very difficult to adjust the seasoning. You're going to see how thick this polenta gets. And one more. And that's 7.
We've got a question about cheese.
About cheese, yeah.
What's the difference between Parm and Grana Padano?
Good question. So again, region, and when you talk about a lot of the different cheeses, Parmesan, I'll tell you in flavor profile, Grana Padano to me is got a stronger salt content. They're both very sharp cheeses, but Grana for me, and usually it's region, I don't know if I'm wrong in saying this, it's region, the particular cheeses are from different regions. Parmigiano Reggiano is always considered to be the king of cheese when it comes to Italian cooking. You hear a lot more about Parmigiano Reggiano. and region dictates a lot of that, right? In terms of the quality itself, the salt content for me is much higher in a grana. And I could be wrong there, Raj, but very good question. If I don't know the answer to things, guys, I will definitely come back and answer them for you, okay? So what I'm going to do now, I have the cream and the milk in here as well as the chicken stock. I'm just going to season with some ground pepper.
I got a question. Do you make your own stock?
Yes, and it was funny. This morning we had a meeting with the head of department meeting, and it was on Zoom. And they were asking everybody, and I didn't have the heart to say to everybody, they were asking where we needed help and could we help each other and stuff like that. And I said, the one thing I probably need is a dishwasher, because you don't realize how much we use pots and pans, especially as a chef. My wife is probably saying, oh my God, yeah, how many pots and pans we're using. So the stock actually I prepared yesterday. But the chicken stock, it doesn't need to be stock. You can be using just water to produce the stock. If you wanted it to be done with a vegetarian or use a veg stock, absolutely. But I did produce my own stock for this yesterday. There are videos as well that you can look back on, and it'll teach you about how to produce a good quality chicken stock, okay? So in terms of the pepper that I put in, I'm going to put in a little bit of kosher salt, okay? Always remembering that, again, I'm adding cheese to this at the end, not a great deal, but I'm adding some cheese to this at the end, so it will contain salt that could make it a little bit saltier, okay? So I'm going to move this over to the stove, and we'll get this to come to a simmer. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to turn on the polenta, on the cream, and I'm going to bring it up to a simmer. And it's not until it starts simmering that I'm going to incorporate the dry ingredients, okay? The butter and the cornmeal itself, what I'm going to do is at the very end when the polenta is close, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we start, but when the polenta gets to the point where it's almost finished, I will cream it with the cheese and the butter, and that would be the end of the process. We're going to also organize at this point 2 trays in silicone paper, so that as soon as the polenta is ready, I'm going to transfer it and press it on a tray, okay? So I'm just going to bring back all my ingredients that I'm going to need for that. So my butter and my Parmesan cheese, and then we're good to go. So I'm just going to have everything ready over here, just so that as soon as time comes, I'm ready to go. So again, mise en place, everything in its place, right? So really important when you're cooking, and we're a little bit fanatics in terms of the industry itself as chefs, is making sure that every ingredient is exactly ready for us at that point in time. So with something like polenta, you don't have a lot of time after the polenta is cooked to get it onto the tray, to press it, because it'll start to solidify right away. So I want to make sure that everything's ready to go. So I'm going to bring my trays over, I'm going to bring over my parchment and have everything ready to go. And then we're going to go back and start producing the aioli, which is so simple. Okay, guys? And I'm going to ask my young sous chef, William, behind the camera, to keep an eye on the cream for me, just so that we're ready to go at the point in time, so it doesn't simmer away.
Roger asks, can you please explain instant polenta versus regular polenta?
Absolutely. So Raj, instant polenta versus regular polenta. Again, instant polenta is very fine. So for me, in terms of producing polenta on the line, like doing a creamy polenta for finishing a dish, I would use the instant. So what we used to do on the restaurant on the line is we used to know exactly how many ounces of stock or cream, or depending on what we were finishing it with, and we would have that pre-organized so that as soon as you had an order, it would be so much polenta cream and whatever flavor builders you're adding to it on the stove. You're whipping it, and it is essentially what it says. It's an instant polenta. So as soon as it starts to boil, There's no grit, and the finish is there. And then we would finish with butter, cheese, whatever the other ingredients are, right? A lot of the higher end grocery stores, supermarkets, some of the retail stores now, they sell all these fantastic ingredients. I mentioned last week, and I continue to mention Pasquale Brothers, which I know Roger's familiar with as well. So Pasquale Brothers has been around for over 100 years, and everybody has had to reinvent the way they think with all this stuff going on at home right now. So they're actually doing from store to door delivery service now. So all these ingredients that I have here, you can get delivered at home, absolutely. And I know a lot of people are starting to do that as well. Because we've had to adapt and we've had to make adjustments with, or they had a very small retail section of their store, but obviously food service was their main source of income. But they were saying their retail side is about 80% right now, which is incredible. And it's so good that they're able to support people at home. People don't have to leave. It keeps everybody safe. There are some concerns and some people talking about some places that are still open. And actually I was reading an article this morning about whether or not food service at home is safe right now, and what do we know about food service delivery and whether or not the food that's coming from those restaurants, do we know enough about whether food is contaminated or not? Nobody knows right now. So to be able to produce meals in your own house is fantastic. And if we're giving the ability to produce restaurant quality meals at home, then it's fun to try, right? So, okay, we're gonna produce the aioli. So Billy, you just keep an eye on that for me, just make sure it doesn't boil, and we're good to go, okay? Okay, back to aioli. Any questions about aioli? So we're gonna get right into aioli. So I'm just gonna move this aside. So essential ingredient for aioli is number 1 would be eggs. Number 2 would be a good quality olive oil or a good quality oil that you're using, and garlic is premier. Obviously, garlic. It's all about the garlic, right? So what we're going to do, move over our ingredients. You'll see that in the recipe, I did something a little bit unorthodox. Is that I added mayo to it, and you might ask why. The reason why is this mayonnaise has a stabilizer in it. So a lot of times, when I was starting off and when I was training young chefs, I was training people that were right out of school. So the challenge with that is, as hard as they're trying, they're learning. So we would teach them the right way to do things, but unfortunately at times they would commonly make mistakes, and those mistakes cost the company money. So I would do things like little cheaters for them, whereas yes, they were still learning how to produce a mayonnaise from scratch, but in the same respect, I was saving the company a little bit of money by not having it split on me halfway through the process, right? So it's a little bit of a cheating stage, okay? So what we're gonna do with this aioli is we're going to crack 2 eggs. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the eggs out of the bowl. Now a lot of people are gonna talk about whether or not raw eggs is safe or whether or not you have to coddle the egg. That's probably a question that my buddy Roger would have asked. You know what, there are some conversations regarding salmonella and where it actually comes from. A lot of the topics talk about the salmonella coming from the exterior of the shell. It's not at all anything to do with the egg inside, or if the chicken was contaminated in any sense, it could contaminate the inside of the egg. But I've been making mayonnaise for years with raw egg and never had an issue. If you feel uncomfortable using raw egg, you can just definitely coddle it. And the way you do that is just in simmering water for 10 to 20 seconds, take it out, and then you produce the mayonnaise the same way. And that will just get rid of anything on the exterior, okay? So what I'm gonna do, and hopefully this works out well for me, is I'm just gonna separate the egg into 2 yolks, okay? If you feel comfortable doing a 3-bowl method, you can do the 3-bowl method. I'll just get rid of these shells. And again, the second one, okay, is right here. Now, you could use a Cuisinart to produce the aioli itself, but because of the mayonnaise being in the mix, I really don't need it at this point. Okay. I'm going to teach you guys a little trick that we learn in the industry as well. I'm just going to get rid of this chopping board. just wetting the towel that I was just mentioned, that you guys saw me pick up, the green towel. So this is a trick if you don't have somebody holding the cutting board at home, or holding the stainless steel bowl, sorry, is what you're gonna do is just wet the towel. You're gonna put it together like this, and then all I'm gonna do is twist it in a spiral, okay? Now I'm gonna create a little bowl, a little place for the bowl to sit. So I'm just making a little ring, okay? Just making sure the bowl will sit inside that ring, like that. And now I can do any whisking that I need to do without worrying about the bowl moving on me, okay? So a little trick. So what we're gonna do now is into the egg yolk itself, I'm gonna add in a tablespoon of the white truffle oil. Okay. In Alba, Italy, are where a lot of prized white truffles come from. Okay. And this is an outstanding product. So again, available at most of the, let me just take these aside for a second. It's called white truffle paste. Essentially, it's mushrooms that have been chopped up and just flavored with truffle, okay? So that's not all truffle in there.
Roger says, does egg yolk in the carton work? Because I never used that.
Pardon me?
He says, does egg yolk in the carton work? Because I never used that.
You know what, Raj? I've never used it either. So I don't believe so. Even when I cook with eggs out of the carton, the consistency is a little bit different. I've never used it myself, but good question, Raj. I've never, even the, we have so many products in the industry. Sorry guys, just putting the garlic in. We have so many products in the industry that us as chefs use, and the liquid eggs in the bag, in the carton, I've never used for it, okay? So now what I'm gonna do, guys, is I'm gonna add in all my mayonnaise, okay? So my mayonnaise is gonna go in at this point. So the egg yolk, so one thing it will definitely do for this is it will make the aioli richer. So you'll notice a definite richness in the quality of the aioli at the end, okay? And you can see it'll change the color drastically, okay? And now when we talk about, you'll hear the big fancy words about pouring in a steady stream. We are going to, just in a slow, steady stream, we're gonna pour in that oil, okay? Now make sure when you're incorporating it that you give a chance for the oil to be absorbed when you're whisking it. So I'm gonna keep whisking it, and if it's not coming together, I'm gonna stop, allow the oil to come together again, and then I'm gonna continue to whisk, okay? If your aioli is too thick, you can thin it a little bit with water. However, you have to be very careful that you're not adding too much water to fat ratio because it'll split the mayonnaise, okay? Okay, so there my mayonnaise is almost finished. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna season it and add my lemon juice. So seasoning isn't only about salt and pepper. You can definitely season with a citrus juice can heighten a flavor. So seasoning with salt and pepper is important, which is what we're gonna do, but we're also gonna add that product of lemon juice and the lemon zest as well to help this, okay? So you can see the quality of the aioli right now and the color, okay?
Just show it. I'm gonna zoom up on that, yeah.
Okay. And it hasn't separated. You would know right away if it had separated. What I'm going to do now is just put some of the zest of the lemon itself. You're going to make, oops, turn it off. That was Billy boiling my cream. So we're going to put the lemon zest right in there. And then we're going to split and we're going to squeeze the juice as well, okay? Okay, there we go. I'm just going to split this lemon. And just using the juicer here, we're just going to juice some of the fresh lemon juice, okay? And it's just going to take a second, and I'll get rid of a little bit of this clutter here, and then I'm going to show you where we're going to go with the polenta next. Okay? Okay, so just a little bit of the citrus juice. Okay. Most important is make sure I'm tasting the seasoning. So a little bit more salt. And a little bit more cracked pepper, okay? That's okay. That's okay. Put it back. Live TV. Yeah. Sorry, Roger asked another question. Oh no, egg yolk in a carton. Okay. So this is essentially what the aioli should look like. Essentially what the aioli should look like at the end. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of a couple of things. I'm going to put this in the fridge till we're ready to use it, okay? Okay, now I'm going to move over. I'm going to take this cloth and I'm going to move over to the polenta itself. We're going to start making that, okay? So we're going to get everything organized for the polenta here. So the cream has come up to a simmer. We're just going to whisk it and make sure that nothing is scorched on the bottom, okay? This polenta now in a slow stream, I'm just going to incorporate all 7 cups of the polenta, of the cornmeal, sorry. And you're going to notice right away that the mixture starts to stiffen up. And this process is quite laborious in terms of it's going to require a little bit of strength. You're going to require using a very strong whisk. So you're going to want to use a whisk that is going to be able to handle some of the stirring. Okay? It's going to be hard for you guys to see. I'm going to get this about halfway rather than going to the whole 15 minutes. But I wanted to show you exactly the process, okay? So you can see you want to continuously move this. You're going to want to continuously be moving the polenta so that it's not sticking to the bottom, okay? And eventually what's going to happen, it's about at the thickness that it's going to continue to be. It's not going to get much thicker than that. But eventually what's going to happen is the grit itself in the polenta is going to disappear. So by tasting it, you're going to notice that it's not as gritty anymore. Okay, so you're just going to keep stirring it. The very end stage, what you're going to do, so let's just pretend we're there and the polenta has already come to the consistency that I wanted. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put in your Parmesan cheese and your butter at once. Okay. You're going to continue to stir that until everything is absorbed, okay? It really smells great. You can smell the cheese and the butter. It really smells fantastic. Where the accent of the Parmesan, you'll taste a little bit of the Parm in here. There's about a cup of Parmesan in this. You can put more, it's not a problem. It will change the salinity. It will also change the consistency a little bit. Keep in mind, depending on what type of cheese you're using. For example, I talked a little bit about using a mascarpone. Using a mascarpone, it's more of a liquid. So it will definitely change the consistency of the polenta itself, okay? So I'm gonna get Billy to follow me right over to these trays. And I'm just going to quickly rinse off one of these. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to pretend our polenta is at that stage, and we're gonna transfer it to the tray. So again, believing that the polenta was at the stage that you wanted it to be, we're going to transfer it. This will do about 2 of these size trays, okay? So you're going to put half the amount on this tray. This is about a 1/3 pan. In the industry, we use full sheets. This is about a 1/3 of that size, okay? You're going to spread it with your spatula down to the size that you want it. Okay, we're just going to transfer this down. Okay, and then when it's all perfectly spread across the tray, what you're going to do is you're going to take parchment paper here on top, and you're going to get a second tray or something that will fit within this size. So for example, I have a second tray that's exactly the same size. And what I'm going to do is press pretty firmly, and what that's going to do is get everything nice and even so that I can cut into the fries. Okay, we're going to put those in the fridge, and then after about 6 to 8 hours, you can take it out, you can trim the sides and cut them into fingers of fries that you require. Okay, I'm going to show you the ones that I prepared earlier. Let me just get rid of this. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go back to the other side, but those are the ones that we prepared earlier, okay? So let me bring them back over to the other side. Any other questions, guys? Okay. So the polenta itself, I'm going to turn that on. Very low. So we're just turning the oil on low so that it comes to temp. So the polenta itself, I'm just going to transfer, will come out in a solid sheet. You'll see that this is quite firm, okay? Okay. So it'll come off in a solid sheet like that. The ideal, you want it to be that there are not too many cracks, because as you're frying, those cracks could break. But it'll come out in a nice steady sheet like that, and then you decide what size you want to cut the fries. I cut the ones today a little bit larger, because for the presentation I wanted to stack them. If they're too thin, I find that they're too dry on the inside. So I prefer them like this so that there's a little bit more moisture. A little bit of water on your knife can help as well, because they tend to be a little bit sticky. And then what I'll do is just cut right across. And get this out of the way. Okay. And we just cut into fingers. Or cubes, or whatever you like. But because we're doing fries, we're going to cut into fingers like that, okay? Wanted to make polenta today with a paprikash. I think it'd be amazing. No, actually, a very good point. Polenta, even though it's an Italian dish, doesn't necessarily mean that everything you serve with it should be Italian, right? So we're talking about a paprikash, and I think it would be incredible with a Hungarian paprikash, right? My wife's dad was Hungarian, so I'm familiar very much with the food. It's delicious. Except for pasulia. No, except for, what was it that Grandpa used to make me eat? The blood sausage.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, and that's it. Cut them into fingers. I'm just going to transfer them to my tray. And then I'm going to clean up here, and then we'll get ready to fry. going to move my presentation board back in because we're there essentially. All we're going to do is fry the polenta fries and present them. I'm just going to get rid of a lot of this stuff that we will not need. Bring back my presentation dish. Okay. And I'm going to need a stainless steel bowl for tossing them in right after, okay? So I'm going to bring over my thermometer and the polenta fries and we'll get going. Okay, so what I've done today, I have more of a shallow fry. So what I'm doing is I'm going to bring the oil temperature. Ideal frying temperature, a lot of us talk, is about 350. So right now I'm at about halfway, 160. Frying the way I'm doing now can be quite dangerous, so you got to be careful to make sure that the oil doesn't get too hot and boil over. I'm doing more of a shallow fry. Just so that I don't have too much oil in this dish. Almost there. And what we're looking for is just that when we put them in, and I'll do a little test here, when we put them in, that the fry itself just starts bubbling, okay? And we're looking for golden brown on all sides. So you'll see when I put it in now, there's not a lot of movement. And that's because the oil isn't quite hot enough, right? What I'm going to organize as well now is I have a tray here. And this tray will be for when I put the fries in the oil. I'll take them out and that'll absorb a little bit of the oil, and my seasoning salt. And there's my seasoning salt. Okay. So let's see how close we are. Very, very close. 215, 217. So about 250. Are there any other questions, guys? What type of oil do you use at home? We talked a little bit about air fryers. I picked one up, actually amazing piece of machinery. I prefer deep frying in oil, but I picked one up because it's a healthier way of cooking these days. A lot of people are using them. In terms of creating this in the oven, you can definitely put it on parchment paper in the oven, set it about 350, 400, and that'll, the base will probably get crispy and golden, but the rest might not. But definitely the oil is the way to go. Okay, here we go. Very, very close. So you'll start to see now that they're going to start to, there'll be a little bit more movement in there soon. Okay, you're going to start to see that. Okay, so now we're starting to fry there. We're going to turn that down a little bit. What I'm going to do as well is make sure that I move them a little bit in the oil in the beginning. And that's just to make sure that they're not sticking on the bottom of the oil. Okay? And I'm not going to overload this frying oil, okay? Talking about, a few people were asking me whether or not polenta fries are healthier. And I guess typically they probably would be if you weren't adding Parmesan cheese, 35% cream, butter, and all that other wonderful stuff. But probably not the way we're preparing them today, okay? So I don't want to overload this because, again, it could be quite dangerous cooking at home in oil like this. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to move this out of the way so that when it comes time to take them out, I can remove them and put them right on this tray, okay? So I'm just controlling a little bit of the heat here. Yeah, see, we're right there, we're about 320. So I'm just controlling the oil. But again, ideal frying temperature, you're looking for about 350 320 to 350 is fine. I'm gently moving them around so they're not sticking together.
Roger just asked how else can you cook polenta other than frying?
Other than frying, roasting in the oven is a nice way. So we were mentioning a little bit before, Raj, that if you take these fries and you put them on parchment paper in the oven is ideal. You can pan sear them. So again, even in less oil than this, doing more of a shallow fry, you can put a little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan. It would require you turning them, but definitely like that. The air fryer, like I said, is definitely a new way of cooking that a lot of people are going towards because they're more comfortable, I guess, based on like I said, the chance of or possibility of burning with an air fryer is far less than dealing with a fryer on the stove, and as well as the danger at home and stuff like that. Like I have 4 kids, so watching them run around, it's very unlikely that I'd be doing this if they were around me. Did that answer your question, Raj? Yeah, and all you're looking for is a nice golden brown on the exterior, okay? I don't want to play with them too much, only because they will, they are still quite fragile, so they will fall apart if I'm playing around with them too much. In the kitchen, we would just be dropping them in the fryer and dropping them in the fryer and taking them out when they're golden brown. Once they have that golden exterior, they're quite forgiving, so they won't break. But until that point, you have to be just careful, okay? Any other questions, guys? This is definitely a dish in terms of the volume that we prepared. It's enough for about at least 10 orders of fries. So you can definitely prepare it for large groups or for your family, a nice snack before you guys sit down to dinner. I wouldn't essentially say it was a dinner. However, I have used them on plate presentations with like a lamb dish is fantastic. Building them up like a cannon and presenting the lamb around is great.
You've got 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
First one, which oil is better for frying? Because some oils aren't good on higher temperatures.
Right, and actually being off and doing a little bit of these videos, I did learn that the misconception is that olive oil does have a lower smoke point, but it is okay for frying. So a lighter quality olive oil. See, I'm on a YouTube video, so I can't talk right now.
There we go. Yeah, just continue saying what you were saying.
Yeah, so no, it's just a lot of people are using all different kinds of oils these days. So avocado oil is becoming a popular source for frying. Probably the biggest difference would be the expense, right? So the type of oil that you use, the expense. But sunflower oil is popular. Coconut oil is very healthy oil used for frying. Peanut oil, other than the obvious allergy concerns, is used a lot for frying. Okay.
And the other question was, would a breading application work in this case?
Absolutely. It'd probably be a lot better than what I'm doing here, to be quite honest with you. It'll hold a lot better, but definitely you could bread them as well. Okay, we're going to see what's going on here in a second. I'm going to turn down the oil a little bit. So I'm going to start pulling up some of the golden fries. I've got some, probably tongs aren't necessarily my best source. Let me get some of these out this way. Okay. Okay, I'm going to let them just absorb some of that oil on the tray. I'm gonna make sure my oil's off. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna season here. And again, I'm just using kosher salt right now. And then we're gonna bring it back over and plate, okay? So I'm gonna just push my oil to the back just so there's no concern. And you can go over and I'll plate over there, Billy.
Yeah.
Okay. So the polenta fries came out of the fryer. Some of them, again, a little golden brown on them, which is fine. A little bit more color is fine as well. I'm going to pull my aioli back out of the fridge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack the fries, okay? So we talked about seasoning them already. I'm just going to stack some of the fries. So I'm going to make sure that oil is absorbed. Just build some levels here. This one is a little bit worse for wear, but that's fine. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of this here as well.
Somebody asked, is polenta good for picky eaters?
You know what? Honestly, like I said, when I first tried polenta the first time, I couldn't stand it. I absolutely adore polenta now. I love it. Okay? So I think as long as it's prepared properly and it has the right flavor profile, it can be enjoyed by anybody. At home, if I was making soft polenta, I might make it a little bit richer and creamier for my young kids because they probably prefer something. They probably call it mac and cheese or something. But in terms of an adult, like I said, if you love blue cheese, it's fantastic with gorgonzola. Make a mushroom cream sauce and put over the top with some gorgonzola, some chopped walnuts. Amazing, okay? So what I'm going to do here now is I had some of that beautiful Parmesan Reggiano earlier. So I'm just going to shave some of that over top and allow it to melt on top of the polenta as well. I'm going to, if I chose to, I'm not going to now, but you could use some of that beautiful truffle salt on top of there. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of really decadent Alba truffle oil. Okay. Some chopped chiffonade of Italian parsley. Okay. And then whether I decided to put the aioli in the dish itself, just like here, so that people can have some to dip on the side. Or if I wanted to even spill some over the truffle fries. Maybe some on the board, some just dredged over the top. Really, it's up to you. Have some fun with it, right? Okay. And that's our snack for today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's any more questions, please just let me know. But that's our Parmesan polenta fries with truffle aioli. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. And we'll see you next week where we're making crab cakes with chipotle and a little bit of a southern twist. So Raj, tune in. I know you're going to be looking forward to this dish, guys. Thank you very much, and God bless everybody.